Wow, thank you so much for that wonderful song. That's an old timer that I haven't sung in a while. So thank you for that choice this morning, Reverend Cindy. I loved it. I also want to welcome our Facebook Live community to our Sunday morning celebration. This is an amazing time to be on this planet with all of the activities of reentry occurring and more people being vaccinated. And I know that this talk this morning is perfect for this time on the planet. So I am very pleased that Reverend Cindy, our staff minister, will be delivering the talk this morning as our beloved Reverend Robert is off doing some other fun things on Sunday for his fifth Sunday time off. Our Reverend Cindy Harp is well known to many of us. She has been a longtime member of our Monterey Center for Spiritual Living. She discovered Science of Mind in our Monterey Church in 1995, started taking classes and never looked back. She was licensed as a practitioner in 1998, then became a minister in 2003 and was ordained in 2010. So she's been around the block a while, and we're so happy that she served for 17 years on the board of trustees when we so needed that consciousness, and has served as a staff minister from 2003 to the present. Reverend Cindy and her husband Lynn now live in the Sierra foothills with their cat Frankie, and we're so grateful for Zoom because she has been a stalwart, regular supporter of our center and can zoom in from several hours away in terms of a car drive. So without further ado, please welcome Reverend Cindy to the platform to deliver this Sunday's talk entitled Boldly Living a New Story.
Good morning, everyone. This is such a pleasure to be able to speak with all of you this morning. Although having this be my first talk by Zoom, I have technical nerves. So without further ado, let's just jump in and know that all is in divine order. Now, as you know, Reverend Robert has been speaking on the Centers for Spiritual Living 2021 theme, Timeless Wisdom, Evolutionary Vision. And this month's theme, holy, meaning entirely, holy or sacred, uprising, holy, holy uprising. The context for this holy uprising is that as a leading edge spiritual organization, we are poised with the teaching and tools to take humanity into a new paradigm of consciousness. We are invited to demonstrate this in our lives, our centers, our communities, and in the world. To do so, we must rise up in consciousness. Our evolutionary vision is that we envision all people, all beings, and all life as expressions of God. And our timeless wisdom tells us that the spiritual principle is spiritual beings. The infinite reality is both transcendent and immanent, meaning God is in us, as us, but it is infinitely more than all we are. Individual human beings are spiritual beings living in a spiritual universe, having a human experience. This is our true nature. So, what if our human experience doesn't seem to be living up to our hopes and visions for a world that works for everyone? Maybe it's not really working fully for us. So how can we help anyone else? What can we do as spiritual beings to rise up in consciousness, and what will happen when we do? How do our teaching tools help us bring into being this new paradigm of consciousness that we are all so eager to enter into? Today's topic is boldly living a new story. Now, in order to contemplate boldly living a new story, there are some questions we need to ask ourselves. First, what stories about our individual and collective past do we continue to tell that, if we're honest, we know are not the most life-affirming stories, our old stories? Second, what if this Sunday we commit to changing the narrative? And third, and important, can we imagine being so bold as to truly embody principle as author, not precedent? Now, the suggested science of mind point of view for the topic this morning is the soul, being the seat of memory, already contains a record of everything that has ever happened to us. These memories as a whole constitute our subjective tendency on the individual life. Now, the good news is that this tendency can be changed through constant effort. And the spiritual law that allows it is what we think, the preponderance of the time, tends to become our experience. So if we want to have direction over our experience, we need to control our minds, our thinking. Science of Mind text says that memory of itself is an unconscious operation of what was once a conscious thought. So by changing our thinking, we can remold our affairs, and by right thinking, we can bring new conditions into our lives and into the world. So let's look at that idea a little more closely. The experiences and state of our consciousness right now and our experience are all the result of all of our memories and experiences up until now. And the problem with that is not all of our memories and experiences are real. What? What do you mean? I didn't imagine those memories. Oh, really? Let's think about that. Everybody loves a good story. One of the most powerful tools in our experience of life is the ability and tendency to make up stories. And we use all kinds of stories to explain our world, our experiences, our thoughts and feelings about everything. Some of these stories are factual. I was in this place at this time. I did this, you did that. Some, however, are make-believe stories about ourselves and other people, whether we know those others or not. Did you ever make up a story about someone in line at the grocery store or the bank, or maybe about that driver who just tailgated you before passing on the double yellow line? Did you ever ascribe thoughts and feelings and motives to others without any real conversation or knowledge about what might have been in their mind? What could possibly go wrong with that? We see the results of this kind of thinking every day in the news, and it's not pretty. Did you ever take something someone said as criticism of you when it really wasn't about you? Am I the only one? I guess. Maybe we make up a story about ourselves. Maybe we look at the past as the good old days when we were the star of the show, the hero of the homecoming team, and we mentally or emotionally long for that role, even though our lives have moved on. Or maybe we actually engage in spiritual malpractice and see ourselves as a failure because we didn't succeed in satisfying our own expectations or someone else's, like our parents. Think about it this way. Whenever our lives change, whether it's starting a new job, a business, changing a habit, leaving something, or burning the toast, we tell ourselves a story about it. We might be the hero, the victim, the wrongdoer, an innocent bystander, or the observer. In our stories, we want to be the hero, but more often, we're the victim. And sometimes our stories involve not believing that we're going to be able to accomplish what we want to do. So then we stuff those thoughts of not enoughness and resentment and anger and disappointment with ourselves into our memory, where they hang around, filtering our every new experience and creating a lot of the same old, same old. Have you ever noticed the tendency we have when examining our past to turn over rocks of anger and resentment at others, playing the victim? Or maybe we revisit happy times, but often we have a time in our life when we didn't measure up to our own expectations, or we said something we wish we could take back, or we took it to heart when someone made a demeaning remark about us. Those things have been draining our creative energies and our happiness for a long time. I'm convinced that we're like youngsters, young people with a pimple. Young people are vibrant, beautiful, full of life. But if there is one zit on a teenager's face, they won't be able to think about anything else. They may even cancel their social plans because they're so embarrassed about their little flaw, when in reality, most people probably wouldn't even notice it or think anything about it. And we can be like that when we contemplate our past disappointments. But the good news is you are in control of your thoughts. So what if this Sunday we commit to changing the narrative and boldly live a new story? What would our lives look like then? Anything you want it to be. Raymond Charles Barker, in The Power of Decision, says, the real you is not only invisible, it is also immeasurable. This correct self-awareness is unconditioned by time or space. It knows no limitation. It only knows expansion, the unfolding of consciousness, unrestricted by past experience. Yes, indeed, it is in every one of us. There is an unlimited, unfolding consciousness that is you, and this truth is what gives us the power, the inspiration, and indeed the mandate to rise up in consciousness. So how do we get our bloated nothingness out of the way of the divine circuits, as Emerson would say, and let God be God through us? I offer up a few of those spiritual tools we have that can help change our thinking and lead to new stories and richer lives and a new world for everyone. Spiritual practice number 1, visualization. Pretend you are making a film of your life. You can be the author, the director, and all the actors. So ask yourself, are you the hero? Are you the victim? Or just a bystander in the main plot? How much time do you give to nursing old wounds and grievances? Is this the role you want to play? Or are you playing small, as Reverend Robert asked a couple of weeks ago? You can capture a new vision of life as you want it to be. What inspires you? What lifts you up? What fills you with joy? Do that. Focus on those things and move in that direction. It's easier to move into a bold new story if it's a story you're excited about, that pulls you forward and fills you with the deep desire to be, do, have that life. The universe is calling. Will you make a bold new destiny for yourself? Can you see it? Spiritual practice number 2, forgiveness. Fred Luskin in Forgive for Good says, if you can view your mind as your house, it can teach you to control how much space you rent to your wounds and grievances. You are the proprietor and you set the rent. Can you give up a cherished anger or resentment and allow that person against whom you hold that grudge to walk through your mind without wanting to throw firebombs at them? If not, you may have some forgiveness work to do. Forgiveness of ourselves and others is one of the most powerful spiritual practices we have. It frees us from the prison of our past and lets us move into spiritual practice number 3, surrendering and letting go. So only you can decide how long you're going to let your present and future be captive to an old belief. If you want to rise in consciousness, you have to decide what you're willing to let go of in order to have a new story going forward. This is the hard work of growing. You have to discard the ball and chain of old belief that keeps dragging you back in order to be free to accept a new idea and a greater vision for your life. And remember, this old belief may be a race belief. That is, it lives in all the mind of humankind. And that race belief lives in you because you have not yet confronted it or overcome it. You may not even be aware of it yet. So this can be scary. This can be scary to our ego mind. After all, if we give up all our attachments and our beliefs and our control of our old stories, then who are we? Well, we aren't going to give up all our old stories. After all, some of them are quite life affirming and have made us who we are today. And who we are is perfect, given our beliefs up until now. So we're simply going to discard the not so helpful stories, so our today and tomorrow can shine more brightly in our new expanded consciousness. Spiritual practice number 4, become aware of the preponderance of your thoughts by checking in with yourself. From The Power of Decision by Raymond Charles Barker, this quote, check your thinking of even the past hour. It will reveal where you stand in the hallways of mind. But I say more importantly, how do you feel it's going? On a scale of 1 to 10, how happy, how vital, how loving do you feel? You don't have to answer that, just in your own mind. This is the hard work of growing constant vigilance. And when the individual succeeds in changing their consciousness, it changes beliefs that live in race mind. Let's look at an example that just happened in sports. Now, I don't know how many of you play golf, but golf is a game that when you play it at the high level of a PGA professional, it demands a lot: physical strength, endurance, agility, mental focus, stamina. It requires that the player become able to discipline his or her mind so that each stroke is independent of what has come before, and to focus on the strategy for the next stroke. Good players use visualization to guide their desired outcomes. Up until now, there has been a belief in race consciousness that golf is a young person's game, and that a professional golfer was over the hill once they turned 40. Jack Nicklaus held the record for winning a championship game at the age of 46, an amazing feat and a record that has stood since 1986. And since that time, there's been a belief that no one could ever surpass that record because it hasn't been done. Last week, Phil Mickelson became the oldest championship winner in golf history, just 2 weeks shy of his 52nd birthday. So why is this important to our discussion? It wasn't an accident. It wasn't luck. This was a result of Phil having a vision for his life and career. He had a deep belief that it just wasn't over for him and that he could still play at the top of the game. He just didn't believe it. He also had a plan. He changed his diet, his exercise routine, his training, and his practice. He continued to persevere, even though he had not finished in the top 10 winners for 55 straight games this season. He believed in himself. And as he said after the game, at the game in the interview, he said, I just knew there was more in it. I knew there was more in me to do, and I loved the game. So he rose up in consciousness and got a bold vision for his life. He didn't listen to the naysayers and those that thought he was over the hill. And frankly, he won on one of the hardest courses I have ever seen. I've watched a lot of golf. Consequently, he has now changed the entire race mind as to what is possible for older athletes in the game of golf. I love those kinds of real life stories about people who put it to work for themselves and showed us a new way of being. So whatever the beliefs that are holding us back, whatever has happened to us, we can change them. You are the only one who can change them for you. But one thing is certain, the only moment of power, the only moment in which you can change your tomorrow is today. So what if this Sunday we commit to changing the narrative? What if we choose today to embody a new truth about ourselves and embrace a bigger idea of what we want our future to be? Will you commit boldly to living a new story? You have to want it. You have to want it enough to love yourself completely, wholly, just as you are, because that's where everything begins, right where you are. You have to want it enough to love your neighbor as yourself, to persist in seeing God in everyone and in all of life, enough to forgive anyone and everyone you think has done you wrong, enough to refuse to be limited by old thoughts of lack and limitation. Remember, you're an unlimited being. And when things go amiss, as they sometimes will do, at least in our sight, we have to want it enough to boldly say, this too is good, this too is God, and I demand to see the blessing in it, because that's what it's going to take. In order to have a new story, we have to give up the old one. It doesn't have to be hard. We have the teaching and the practical tools to change our lives. In fact, most of us have already done some of that work and are thinking again, yep. Elevating our consciousness and our lives is a journey, not a destination, as they say. It's a spiral, curving, ever upward stairway. But sometimes we may hit a greasy spot on the stairway of life and we slide back down into that old mental muck, and then we have to scrape it off and climb again. So that's where we put our practice, into these powerful teachings and practical tools that we have to offer the world. So in summary, there are 3 steps, at least, to changing your life. One is to pay attention to your thoughts and feelings about life and what happens in it. Let life show you what is working and what is not. Second, release what doesn't serve you. Surrender those negative emotions that leave you feeling powerless and unlovable. They're not the truth. Forgive, forgive, forgive yourself and everyone else. And 3, catch the vision. Envision your new life and begin writing a newer, more loving and life-affirming story. These steps are just the beginning of a new story. If we want to grow and rise up, we have to be fearless, decisive, determined, and open to a greater reality. So how do we begin? We must use our most powerful tools. Listen to that inner guidance system that lives in you as you and is the real you, the great I am of you. It's always there for you. It is your touchstone. It is what tells you what your passion is. It is what tells you what gives you joy and draws you into the desire for something greater. Practice affirmative prayer. This is one of the most powerful tools we have. Scientific prayer is setting the natural law of life into motion. It's not asking for something. It's not even pleading for something. It's not even placing something out somewhere for somebody else to do something with. It is remembering the truth of who and what we are as divine beings. Practice gratitude. Living a life of gratitude for what has been, gratitude for what is now, is a powerful, powerful tool. Find the simple pleasures that make life the feast that it is and savor them. Fill your mind with thoughts of beauty, love, and plenty today so that your tomorrows will reflect these new memories. Seek out the thoughts and the people and the moments that bring you joy, that give your life meaning. Now, this is not to say that life, I'm not a Pollyanna. This is not to say that life always only brings us happy moments and circumstances that we view as positive. Sadness, tragedy, death, disappointment, we all experience them as part of our human experience. It's how these experiences change you that is important. Marianne Williamson, in her book, Everyday Grace, speaks to this. She says, I've learned from experience that happiness is an acquired skill. There is something always to complain about, even in the best of times. And there's always something to celebrate, even in the worst of times. Happiness is not an objective reality as much as a subjective decision. I have lived large parts of my life in wonderful circumstances that I utterly failed to appreciate. Reasons to be happy were everywhere. but somehow I didn't connect with them. It was as though I was eating but couldn't taste the food. Finally, I've learned to celebrate the good while it is happening. I feel gratitude and praise today for what are sometimes such simple pleasures. I've learned that happiness is not determined by circumstances. Happiness is not what happens when everything goes the way you think it should go. Happiness is what happens when you decide to be happy. Now, she goes on to relate that there was a time in her life, a few years before, when several of her family members died in quick succession. And it seemed like their family only got together to go to funerals and to mourn. A couple of years later, a niece married, and family came from all over the world to celebrate. She says that the celebration was more important than it already would have been because, as she says, the event was so infinitely sweet because it contrasted dramatically with the bitterness of the previous few years. And she goes on to say that those who have learned to be happy are often those who have suffered most. When simple pleasures have been taken away, such as someone's loving smile or encouraging word, then the next time such pleasures come around, and they do, we lift our cup of life to them. We sing God's praises in a way we had never done in the days when we took so much for granted. Gratitude is essential to happiness. Developing a grateful attitude and knowing that every time we arrive somewhere safely, we have something to be happy about. Every time our children rush up to us and smile, every time our fur people come and rub up against us, every time we get out of bed and take a deep breath and go out for a walk, we have something to be happy about. That is the essence of a happy existence. Happiness is a muscle that we must use or it will wither away. She says, having loved and lost, I now love more passionately. Having won and lost, I now win more soberly. Having tasted the bitter, I now savor the sweet. So what is your bold new story for your life? Are you ready to get a bold new vision? Give up the old stuff that's bitter, maybe divisive, disempowering, and grab something positive and life affirming and wonderful and joyful for yourself. And maybe it's not about having a bold new story at all, but remembering, just like the lilies of the field, how they grow. They neither toil nor spin, and yet they are clothed in glory. From this place, you don't need to toil or spin or be anxious for a bold new story, but simply be here now. Be present. Raymond Charles Barker tells us in The Power of Decision, the infinite is a divine extravagance. It is forever giving itself away. In order for it to have total self-expression, it has to be a total givingness. All of life wants you to live fully. All the love there is wants you to know yourself right and fully use your capacities. You have everything going rightly on your side when you understand this science and use its principles. So our conclusion and call to action today, our daily affirmation for the coming week, should you choose to use it. Today, I release my old story and behold the new me as the beloved. And our 3 questions for study and contemplation, should you choose to use them this week. Number 1, what is the difference between facts and story filler? Number 2, how has your past story served you and for what are you grateful? Number 3, what will you leave behind and what will you take with you in your bold new story? Now the tech team is placing these affirmations and study questions in the chat for you, and they will also appear on the Facebook page for those friends who watch us on Facebook. We get caught up in our day-to-day struggles and forget to give thanks for the gift of life that is allowing us to still be here. Let's give thanks for the old story you needed in the past and begin to embrace now, the place where you can create a bold new story or simply be present fully in this place of wonder and enchantment and create a more beautiful tomorrow for everyone. Let us pray. We enter into that silent place where all is light and life, power, peace, joy, where all things await us. The very life and essence of the universe, that which we call God, intelligence, divine givingness, has given each and every one of us the gift of itself, the gift of life, of self-determination, the ability to seek joy, to change the world should we choose. In this, we are all united. We are all one. We each have our own unique, beautiful, distinct gifts, and the world is awaiting our gifts. So we declare right now that we are ready, that we are able, and that we are, in fact, giving the best, the highest of ourselves, to the world, to each other. We are unlimited. We are ever growing. And as we focus on our I am consciousness, we are able to forgive. We surrender and let go of what does not serve us. We are inspired and uplifted by our vision of a world that works for everyone, and we are one of those ones. We give of ourselves to this new vision, to this new story, and we declare and affirm that life is abundant. We enlarge our bucket to receive what is already there for us. Whether we feel a lack in any area of our life, in love, in finances, creative expression, right livelihood, our health, it is not the truth. We are, in fact, richly and abundantly supplied with every good and needful thing to live fully. We embrace this now. We claim it now. We celebrate it now. We also celebrate those who have given their lives in service this weekend. Their vision led them to boldly give all for their fellow human beings. And as Reverend Robert said last week, today we say their names in our hearts. We honor their sacrifice with our loving appreciation and our gratitude. And we give thanks now for all of these good things, for the power we have to reflect the divine in everything we think, do, and say. We embrace it. We release this word into that law which always says yes to our deeply held desires, to the preponderance of our thought, to the coming of the new, and makes it perfect and even better than we envision. We give thanks for it, knowing that life is eternally giving itself to us and through us, and it is good and very good. And if you choose to join me now and make this word your own, join me in saying, and so it is.
Thank you, Reverend Cindy, for that beautiful and inspiring message. And know that for those of you that didn't capture the contemplation questions, they will also be published in our Monday newsletter. So if you wish to subscribe, just send us an email. So now we enter into a wonderful spiritual practice that to me is an amazing testimonial to the richness of life. And that is participating in the law of circulation through our gifts and tithes and offerings. So our affirmation of abundance, I recognize the presence. The presence of God within as the source of my abundance. Out of my abundance consciousness flows everything I could desire in life. With gratitude and thanksgiving, I now participate in the flow of uninterrupted abundance. I release this visible substance, an outer symbol of my inner supply, into the physical world. This prosperous experience is evidence of my abundance consciousness. And I would certainly invite anyone who is moved to do so to support our center and our outreach through any of a variety of ways of giving by doing an old-fashioned check that you can mail to our center in Monterey, California, or you can go to our secure website and donate. Also, we have links for donating in our twice a week newsletter that goes out on Monday and Fridays, or you can text to give through your telephone by texting to the number that's listed on your screen. It's a painless and effortless way for people to give of their good. And for me, tithing is an old-fashioned term, but it for me it's an affirmation of the goodness of life and how richly I am blessed. So this week I wrote out an extra tithe check for unexpected income that flowed in the form of 3 different checks. And I designated that for the building fund because this unexpected income to me is being used very wisely by our beautification team, who is polishing and scrubbing and cleaning and beautifying our beautiful site, our building and our grounds for our soft opening on June 20th. So I want to thank our Facebook Live audience for joining us. And a reminder that next week, the first Sunday in June, the theme for June is the soul's call. And the talk is entitled Pushed by Pain, an intriguing talk. So come back next week and hear our beloved Reverend Robert talk about the soul's call.